We're streaming the 8th grade TGAA today. Let me tweet it out. Tomorrow, I don't know what we'll do. We probably won't continue Danganronpa another because it's the last day before I go to college. So I want to just relax and not have to edit anything. So I might just stream something chill. So we're gonna hold on. Alright, it's gaming time. So, like today we'll do this, and then tomorrow we'll probably just like mess around in Bomb Rush Cyberpunk or something and do the post game. And so that's what we'll do tomorrow. But today and then once I get to college and finish unpacking and stuff, I plan on streaming every other day, like every Tuesday, every Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday. So that's what I'm gonna stream that's my streaming schedule when I'm at college, and maybe Wednesdays too. I'm not sure. It depends on how much homework I get, but I'll stream whenever I can. Um, have I pinged everyone in my Discord? Wait, hold on. Delete message. Wrong channel. Alright, gaming time. So my plans for streaming is to continue this and Danganronpa another, and then in September the Sonic DLC comes out, so I'm gonna play that. I'm gonna play the Sonic Frontiers DLC, and then I'm also gonna play this and Ace Attorney, and then Mario when that comes out, the new Mario Bros, the Mario Wonder, and then after that is Mario RPG, and then after that is Persona 5 Tactica. And I might switch back and forth between the two. It depends. It really depends on my college schedule, really. The Adventure of the Runaway Room. Hopefully there'll actually be a trial segment.
Records of the late last century, I am faced by the events of a certain bitter winter.
Wait, does this game have trial segments? Does the Great Ace Attorney have trials? Okay, there is a trial in this case. Fucking finally, we get to be a lawyer. I didn't get spoiled, by the way, luckily. No.
A murder in a carriage as it sped through dense London fog in the dead of night. Though the victim and the perpetrator were the only ones inside, there were multiple witnesses to the crime itself. However, none could have imagined at the time that such a seemingly obvious case as this would end in such a horrendous manner.
What?
My friend, Mr. Herlock Sholmes, once said of the incident,
I
Sherlock
believe
Holmes.
that perhaps that case was indeed
the prelude. The beginning of a long concerto that impressive Japanese student and I were to
What's up,
play
Monaco?
together.
Yeah, I can tell.
Amazing. Is this really just a railway station?
Railway station or not, I've never seen such an enormous building before.
And look at all the steam locomotives.
So did we make it?
Country's
Did we
incredible.
become a lawyer?
I feel like
I should probably make this
I'm
smaller.
dreaming.
Like
So
this.
this is the capital of Great Britain.
So, where to?
Oh, hello.
Climb aboard. I'll take you wherever you want to go.
In that case, the Supreme Court in Whitehall, if you wouldn't mind.
My pleasure. I suppose you're visiting students from abroad, eh?
Yes.
Thought so.
So did
Well,
we become a
I hope you
lawyer?
Enjoy your stay. And welcome to the centre of the world, Great Britain's mighty capital, London.
What an incredible place! It's so imposing, it almost suffocating. I'll be right back. This place is breathtaking. It looks like a fortress. There's some stone buildings like this in Japan now, of course, but they've only been built in the few short decades since we opened our borders to the outside world. An authentic example like this has quite a different impact. A far cry from the wooden paper most of our buildings are constructed from. It's certainly unfamiliar, but I think there's more to the differences than just the construction materials. What is this place again? This is the Lord Chief Justice's office in the Supreme Court of Main Britain. We had instructions to report here at this time. If circumstances were different, we were supposed to let the Lord Chief Justice know we had arrived from Japan. But Kazuma can't. So instead, we're here in a different capacity, as envoys to report the news of Kazuma-sama's death. And having delivered his or her message, an envoy's duty is done. So we'd have to return to Japan. If we want to remain here in Great Britain, I have to take Kazuma's place as a law student selected for the study tour. Which means you need the requisite qualifications as a lawyer. which is what I've been studying for. Here in Great Britain, it is the Lord Chief Justice that appoints lawyers. So that is the second reason why I'm here, to have you officially recognized as a lawyer. It's the only reason that we'll be able to remain here in London. Ah, good morning. Sorry for keeping you. Oh, I trust you aren't too exhausted after your long voyage from Japan. It seems I'm 1 hour, 12 minutes, and 47 seconds late. My apologies. Oh, no, don't mention it. We're never happier when we're standing around with nothing much to do. How fortunate. So, introductions. I am Mael Strongheart, Lord Chief Justice of the British Empire. Come on, Mr. Naruhodo, don't be a mouse. It's an honor to meet you, Lord Chief Justice Starhearts. I'm Ryunosuke Naruhodo from the Empire of Japan. Well, Mr. Naruhodo, welcome to London, the capital of our glorious British Empire. So, what are your impressions of our capital so far? How do you like London? Well, help, I've been so nervous ever since I got here that I can't remember a single thing about the city. It's simply splendid, isn't it, Mr. Naruhodo? We had a wonderful view of some of London's streets from the carriage on the way here from the station. Everything is so impressive and grand. I must say I'm almost lost for words. I'm glad to hear you like it. The city boasts tramways, piped water and gas, even cables supplying electricity. We spearhead every revolutionary new technology in the world. Every visitor to London is astounded. Astounded to the word. And everyone seems so jolly and full of vigor. Yes, there's much excitement about the upcoming great exhibition we will be hosting here in London. Cultural and technological advancements from around the globe are to be exhibited here at the city. It will be the greatest spectacle of its kind in history and will make Paris's World Fair look like a toy shop. I can only imagine how magnificent it's going to be. Okay, so that's where the murder's happening. Great Britain's capital city is nothing but magnificent. London is the center of the modern world. The sun will never set on our great empire. Perhaps it is fate that in these progressive times we welcome visitors from the land of the rising sun. Lord Chief Justice, I think you were expecting a student of law for the study tour, weren't you? Absolutely, Mr. Kazuma Asogi. That's right. The British government has already been telegraphed a full report on the situation. I understand the young man lost his life aboard the steamship bound for our shores. My country naturally extends its deep condolences to yours. And you honored this appointment specifically to inform me of the news? Yes. We're here in the capacity as envoys from Japan to report the sad news of Poison. They tell me you Japanese are people of protocol and courtesy, and I see that it is true, and it is with some regret that I must inform you that the death of the Lanyora means the study tour arrangement can no longer proceed. What do you have to say, madam? It is about the study tour. Mr. Naruhodo here would like to make a proposal. Would he now? Well, Mr. Naruhodo, this is it then, the moment of truth. The thing is, Lord Justice, Lord Strongheart, I was wondering if perhaps you considered allowing the study tour to go ahead. Don't misunderstand me. Britain would ideally like to see the tour go ahead, but without a lawyer from your country, there's nothing to be done. Well, in that case, what if there was someone else? Another lawyer from Japan, I mean. Is there something I don't know? Only a single lawyer was invited to Great Britain from your country, and that was Mr. Asogi. At least, that's what I've been led to understand. Well, the thing is, this really isn't going well at all. I can't seem to find the right words to say to this man. Mr. Naruhodo! If there's someone else, it's me. I can do it. Is that so? I mean, I don't actually have any qualifications as such, but no qualifications, you say, and yet you still claim to be a lawyer. I've acted as a lawyer in the court only once as it happens. And I had Kazuma to help me, and I was the accused. But glossing over the details, I've been spending every spare moment on the journey here to Great Britain studying. I've learned all about British law and court proceeding while I was on board the SS Buria. The voyage from Japan is some 50 days, I believe. Not what you might call a full education. To become a qualified lawyer here in Britain, not only do you need a university degree in law, you must also complete several... I realize it's far too short a period of time, but I can't just go back to Japan. Mr. Asogi's journey had only just begun. Coming here on the study tour was all he thought about. I have to carry on and do everything he planned to do. I know it may sound I have an overly inflated opinion on myself, but I would do anything to prove I have what it takes. Any test you care to set to me, just one chance. 31 seconds. Your opening statement there, Mr. Naruto. It was 31 seconds long. Not too brief, not too protracted. A perfectly judged appeal, I would say, which is a skill that would stand you in good stead as a lawyer. So, you're willing to put those words to trial, are you? Well, I'm all for entertainment. But let me ask you one thing first, sir. You say you intend to do everything Mr. Asogi planned to do. Are you firmly set on that path? Well, yes, that's my intention. Did his expression just alter a fraction there all of a sudden? Very well. You have your wish. I'll give you a chance. A test to become a specially certified lawyer. Whether you pass or fail is entirely up to you. So what form will the test take exactly? Tell me, Mr. Naruto, what do you think the role of a lawyer to be? Well, defending people, of course. Well said. So, let's have you defend someone. Your timing is perfect, in fact. There's an apt trial to begin later today. No advocate has been appointed to the defense as yet, so this will be welcome news. If you manage to secure a verdict of not guilty, you'll have passed my test. What could be simpler? Well, could I have asked, what sort of trial is it, Lord Strongheart? Yes, good question. I remember. It's a murder trial. An extremely simple case, I understand. You really can't lose. But I should mention, just in case, that if the defendant is found guilty, he will, of course, be sentenced to capital punishment. Here in Great Britain, murderers are sent to the gallows without exception. Presumably, you read that much in your short sea-based introduction to British law. We would be toying with a man's life. I'm the Lord Chief Justice, and I've decided it's acceptable. There's no need to overcomplicate this. All you have to do is ensure that you don't lose. So the defendant may live or die depending on how well I perform in this court. If I lose, he'll be hanged. Mr. Naruto, you've come to me claiming to be a lawyer. If you wanted me to take you seriously, you need to prove you're willing to do a lawyer's job, and you say you intend to see through the will of your compatriot, Mr. Asogi. I'd like to understand just how far you're willing to go in order to make that happen. What's the matter? You've fallen silent. I'm sorry, but time is pressing. The trial begins shortly. I need an answer for you now. What's it to be? What do I say? Do I agree to this absurd test? Alright then, if I have to give you a decision now, my answer is... I can't do it, I can't get the words out. 15 seconds! Your decision-making needs work if you want to be a lawyer. That was too slow. So it's as I suspected, is it? You have noble intentions, but lack the resolve to see them through. The test is cancelled. Thank you for stopping by. Go out and acquire your ticket for passage back to the east tomorrow. This conversation is over. Yes, Lord Strongheart. Thank you for offering me a chance. I'm sorry, Miss Susato, but what could I do? It's alright, I understand. It's not an easy decision to choose whether to defend a man like this, but resolve has absolutely nothing to do with it. What are you trying to say, madam? I think it's what Miss Susato means, is that no matter how badly I'd like to be recognized as a lawyer and stay here in Great Britain, to risk another man's life by treating his one and only chance at trial so trivially would be utterly unforgivable, and I feel exactly the same way. I'm sure the defendant won't see this trial as a test, as some kind of experiment. A lawyer may fight for his clients in court day after day, but for each one of those clients, that particular day they stand at the dock may be the only chance they have to fight to prove their innocence. I'm not qualified to do that job yet. I'm sorry for wasting your precious time, Lord Chief Justice. Wait, Mr. Naruto. Oh, was there something else? It's approximately 20 minutes by carriage to the Old Bailey from you. If you leave immediately, you should still be there in time. But I just said that. I was quite serious in what I told you. The defendant in this case has literally no one to advocate for him. At this point, he can't hope to find someone. The trial will begin without a defense. And if that happens, there's only one possible outcome. He will receive the most severe sentence the judge can pass down. Please don't expect an answer to every question. The cold hard truth of the matter is that there is only one person now with a chance to save this man from a very miserable end, and that is you. I'm really his only hope? So, what do you say now, madam? You said it was an easy decision to choose whether to defend a man in these circumstances, and I agree. But in my estimation, it is purely and simply a matter of resolve. Our time is up here. I have a meeting to attend. I must leave in 2 minutes and 16 seconds. So, venture into our great city and enjoy yourselves. Did he just assign us to the defense? The Old Bailey. If we're gonna do this, Mr. Naruto, we must leave at once. Miss Susato, can I just ask you something? Careful, from this position, I can perform a Susato takedown in an instant. Mr. Naruto, you heard Lord Strongheart. The trial starts imminently. If I need to throw you, I will. If you need to ask me anything, you'd better wait until we're at the Old Bailey. Dun dun dun! Oh, thank goodness, we're in time. There's still 15 minutes until the trial begins. I never knew a horse-drawn carriage could go so fast. I thought my teeth were gonna rattle loose. What? You hear what I said to the driver when we climbed aboard? Get us to our destination in 5 minutes, drivers, and there's a guinea in it for you. It's one of my favorite lines from the Herlock Sholmes stories. Well, at least we arrived here before the trial started. Yes, I suppose there's that. Anyway, I don't understand it. The court clerk says the defendant should be here, but there's no sign of him at all. So this is the Old Bailey. Even this is a room for defendant. Even the room for defendants is grand. Are you alright, Mr. Naruto? I'm feeling tense, that's all. This place gives me the same sense of foreboding that I remember from the Supreme Court in Japan. An oppressive air, almost as if the building itself is going to crush what is ever about to be sentenced. It feels like only yesterday that I was the one about to be crushed. Yes, whoever the man you're to defend is, I imagine he's feeling very alone at the moment. Top of the morning to you, madam, sir. What are yous doing following me here? Things are fair desperate, are they? Would you look at those expressionless faces? From the east, are yous? We're from Japan, yes. Japan, is it right? Say no more. So, how much do you need? No, we're just here because... No need to explain, fella. I've been there myself, so I have. No place to go, nothing to call. Eat, barely a penny in your name. I want one in a strange, faraway land. You haven't found a place to stay yet, no. 'Tis grand, 'tis grand. Let me start by giving you 1,000 guineas. Stay and say nothing now. But 1,000 guineas is enough to build an entire mansion in the most prestigious area of Tokyo. 'Tis nothing to me at all. I like to ensure I have sufficient funds to weather a rainy day, you see. I've enough wealth to buy the city of London 2 or 3 times over. Could that much rain even fall in one day? Well, even so, we couldn't possibly accept such a large sum of money. What? Don't get me wrong, fella. I'm not a-giving it to you, no strings attached. I'd be wanting you to do something for me. To be honest, it's a little embarrassing. The trial that's about to begin, you see, is for me good self here. I'll be in the dock. So now, what I want you to do is come along with me and stand there beside me. Officially, you'd be my lawyer, but that's just a little detail now. All you have to do is stand up next to me. Otherwise, you see, the trial is going to start without me having any kind of representation at all. I'm terribly sorry to have to ask, but does that mean you're the defendant in this trial? Bluster and blazes, do you not notice who I am? Me, one of London's biggest names? Okay, even if he's not the murderer, he's a rich person, and eat the rich. So, I think we should secure a guilty verdict for him anyway. If any rich people are watching this, that's a joke. If Jeffrey Bezos is watching this, that's a joke. It's just a funny joke. I suppose it isn't altogether impossible. Next to Hyde Park there in the center of London is another beautiful park. It's called McGilded Park, filled with blossoming flowers in the spring and singing birds and whatnot. I donated it to the city, so I did. A city of smiles, that's my vision for London. There's nothing Magnus McGilded. His name is Magnus McGilded. His name is Magnus McGilded. What do you have to say about that, Frisk? What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? Thanks, Frisk. Very epic. That's amazing. I mean, really extraordinary. But now they have the gall to say I'm a good-for-nothing criminal. Me, Magnus McGilded. What's wrong with the London police, I ask ya? Excuse me. Mr. Naruhodo, perhaps now would be a good time to introduce ourselves while the gentleman catches his breath. Mr. McGilded, the thing is, we're actually here in London to study British law. We're law students on a study tour from Japan. So, if you don't have a lawyer for the trial yet, and you'd be happy to put yourself in our hands, we'll do our best. What was I after saying, you daft idiot? I've given you 1,000 guineas to stand up there next to me. Oh, I think I see what's going on here. I know what you're thinking. This Chancellor fellow claims to have more money than the Queen. But if that's true, why the blazes can't he hire the finest lawyer in all of England? Because he did it. That's the only explanation. Well... not at all. Although it is a little strange, to be honest. Why you don't have a lawyer, I mean. That would be the fault of the Reaper. What? I, the Grim Reaper of the Bailey, Lord Barak von Zeeks. He's the prosecutor. The prosecutor is the Grim Reaper? When Viking stands for the prosecution, they call the accursed his accused sacrificial lambs, and to this day, in every single trial in which he's been the prosecutor, the accused have been damned. Okay, so he's just the Miles Edgeworth. We can beat him. So it's reached a desperate situation where there's no one willing to stand in defense against the fella at all. You could say he's a living legend of the Old Bailey. Goodness, Lord Barak von Zeeks. He must be an exceptionally talented prosecutor then. Talented isn't the word you're looking for, man. It's cursed. The defendant is summoned, and his counsel. Please make your way to the courtroom. The trial's about to begin. His counsel, that would be me. Oh, 'tis time. Well then, fella, don't let me down. But I don't know anything about the case. You haven't told me what happened. Until you showed your face here, I'd made up me mind, so I had. I decided I'd have to defend myself in there. But then you made an appearance, a student of law, wouldn't you know? 'Tis no accident, I can assure you of that. 'Tis fate, so don't get cold feet now, please. I literally know nothing about the case, or about this man who stands accused. In fact, the only thing I do know is that I can't just turn my back on him. Mr. Naruhodo, the man is no one. He'll have to stand alone in that courtroom, armed with nothing to defend himself. Yes, something that Kazuma never would have allowed to happen. Counsel for the defense, what are you doing? If you're late for the start of the trial, you will lose your right to stand. I'll be right there. It's happening then. My first trial in a British court. I hope you're watching over me, Kazuma, because I have no idea how I'm going to manage this. I hope we run into Herlock Sholmes again. So this is the highest court in Great Britain, the Old Bailey. The centuries of history in this place is palpable, isn't it? It's so different to the Supreme Court. It feels both imposing and serene at the same time. The atmosphere almost makes words redundant. Whatever the country, determining a person's guilt or innocence is always a solemn affair. May I say something, Mr. Naruhodo? Oh yes, what? Your eyes look ready to pop out of your head again. I know, but I just can't help it. What the fuck? The prosecutor is a vampire? In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session. We are here today to determine the guilt or innocence of Mr. Magnus McGilded, and now call on counsel to the prosecution and the defense to declare their willingness to proceed. The prosecution is fully prepared. Ah ha ah! Count Dracula, I want to say. That must be the Reaper of the Bailey. He really does look fully prepared to dispatch his next poor victim to the underworld. Counsel for the defense, you appear to be Eastern. Do you speak English? Oh, yes, of course. Sorry. But he asked if the defense was ready, and I couldn't be further from ready if I tried. Those eyes please me. Nipponese. They shroud your fear, your doubt, your trepidation. They run wild, clinging to some phantom notion of courage. One! That's the number of the day! The quintessential look of a sacrificial lamb. Now, Mr. McGilded. You stand accused of murder, a capital offense. You could be sent to the gallows if found guilty. Are you quite sure you want to entrust your defense to this foreigner? As I've always said, my lord, 'tis a grand thing to give opportunities to the young, even if the fellow's a student from some little island off in the Far East. Is it not the British ways to ignore the dangers of the South to give the fortunate a fine chance? I'd like to think that acts of chivalry do the great British Empire proud. Do you hear that he donated £5,000 to the government the other day? Mother, may we please plan would... It seems everyone in the public gallery is firmly behind Mr. McGilden. Can we just... He's rich! He can just... This is a capitalist country. He can just bribe the fucking court to let him off free. That's definitely welcome news, and he certainly has a way with words. I'm surprised he couldn't convince anyone to defend him. Eloquently put, Mr. McGilden, and most laudable sentiments. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'm sure I hardly need to remind you that you 6 members of the public have been selected for your impartiality. Are you ready to proceed? Oh, he's got a fucking jury of his peers, bro? There's a full-ass jury? Yes, my lord. If the task is to send rotters to the gallows where they belong, I'm more than ready. At the manor, his lordship always says we should dispose of rubbish properly. Ha! Any criminals here will soon be wishing they never set eyes on me. I feel chill. Oh, don't mind me, my dears. I'll be just getting on with my knitting. Must finish these mitts for my grandson. Mr. Naruhodo, those people are the jury. Yes, that's something we don't have in Japan yet. I've only ever read about it. But here in Great Britain, the court's final verdict depends on the opinion of these 6 jurors. The judge passes sentence according to the law, but the jurors determine guilt based on common sense. So, these guys determine guilt, and then the judge determines what the punishment is. So the defendant is ultimately judged from 2 completely different points of view. But how exactly do the jurors give their verdict? That I don't know, but I'm sure it will become clear as the trial progresses. Prosecutor Van Zeeks. My lord. It's been a number of years since we've seen you in the courtroom. I saw you've renounced your fame. I'm known as the Reaper of the Bailey, my lord. Infamy rather than fame, I would say. But yes, 5 years has passed since I last spread my wings in this capacity. So what brings you back? Is there some change of circumstances which the court should be aware? I leave that to your imagination, my lord. So the Reaper has been out of action for 5 years. Then he's washed up! Why do you have to choose today of all days to make a reappearance? As you wish, sir. The court nevertheless welcomes your return. Now then, opening statements, I think. A summary of the case, if you please. Certainly, my lord. As your lordship is aware, this is a case of overwhelming simplicity. We must be the only ones here who aren't aware. The incident took place in the late evening. 3 days had passed. The hour was some minutes after 10. The victim was a maker of building bricks, known in the community as Thrice Fried Mason. He was a very accomplished craftsman. The bricks he fired were said to be almost indestructible. The victim's corpse was discovered in an omnibus in service of the streets of London at the time. A dagger had been thrust into the victim's abdomen, is believed to be the ultimate cause of death. Here's an autopsy report from the investigating medical officer at Scotland Yard. Thank you, Counsel. I shall accept that and the photograph as evidence. They have color photos here in Japan? I mean, here in Britain? And one further item of evidence, the prosecution would like to submit these as well. Alright, right off the bat, I see some writing here. And I see some scratch marks on his neck. That's probably important. And these are? Good lord, is that blood, Mr. Kanzo? Yes, my lord, seized by a policeman who arrived at the scene. These gore soap gloves. They're taken from the hands of the the defendant. What? Mr. McGilded gloves had blood on them. Yes, I will accept these into evidence as well. How did I get into this? I'm back into a corner before I've even started. Continuing. According to the driver of the omnibus, there were only 2 passengers traveling in his vehicle at the time. There were only 2. Obviously, one of those passengers was the deceased brickmaker, Mr. Mason. The other was the accused, Magnus McGilded. Well, rather damning circumstances, to say the least. Defendant, what say you? Well, of course I have no recollection of such a thing. Mr. McGilded! To be sure, I rode the omnibus that evening. But whenever I'm in a carriage, I'm taken with a fierce tiredness, and I always succumb to it. Same, to be honest! That's me when I'm riding in a car. Are you claiming to have been asleep? 'Tis the motion of the carriage, my lord. 'Tis the motion of the carriage, lilted so it is, and when I opened my eyes again, 'twas a desperate sight before me, the body of a man I'd never laid eyes on before in my life. Now I ask you, what good-hearted soul wouldn't rush to help a fellow bleeding from his stomach? I wasn't about to start worrying about me gloves now, would I? I reached out to give the man a hand. So the blood got on the gloves then, after the man had been killed. Unfortunately, that statement of the driver is only the beginning. There were multiple witnesses to the precise moment in which the bridgemaker was fatally stabbed. Order! 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 Then the killing took place. Only the victim and the accused were inside of the carriage, and there were witnesses to the crime. This is not just a case of compelling evidence. It's the nail in the coffin for the accused. Thank you, counsel. The circumstances of the crime have been made quite clear. I don't think we will hear testimonies from these witnesses, first of all. Your wish is my command. Bailiff, bring in the witnesses at once. Right now? Really? You have to do it right now. Right now. Witnesses, your name and occupations. My name is, everyone calls me Beppo. I drive the omnibus in the East End. Bruce Fairplay. I'm a banker in the city. My name's First. Lady First. Oh my god. I am make hats for gents. A few days ago, at a short time after 10 o'clock in the evening, all of you were present in the stand were in an omnibus and witness to the aforementioned incident. Hold on, but they said there were only 2 passengers. Quite right. Yes, sir, that's right, sir. Very well, then let's proceed to your formal testimonies, please. Each of you will tell the court precisely what you saw. But didn't they say the driver was the only the only 2 people were the... It was the last bus of the evening, so I had a few customers. I remember it well. The victim and the man accused of killing him were next to each other inside the bus. Then, out of the blue, the accused just reached over and plunged a knife into his guts. That's right, he shot him. I screamed, I did. As soon as I heard the scream, I stopped my bus, and then I saw it too. Unambiguous testimony, I must say. Exactly, my lord. These men witnessed the incident in the omnibus with their own eyes. I'd like to ask a question, if I may. Well, this testimony makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. Well, the incident took place inside a moving carriage, didn't it? Has been clearly stated from the outset, yes. Well, in that case, how could those 2 witnesses possibly have seen what happened? There's no way they could have seen in the inside of a moving carriage. How quaint. I've heard that civilization in the Eastern Island nations was a good century behind our own, but you're here in London Island yourself. Are you really so ignorant about our omnibuses? Tell me, my Nepalese friend, have you ever traveled in an omnibus? Well, no, we, only arrived in London this morning. No matter. I've arranged for us all to see for ourselves. The actual scene of the crime, that is. A carriage is destined to be moved, after all. Presumably you understand that much. The omnibus in which this bloody crime took place is here today, in this very building. Bailiff! Bring forth the stricken omnibus. Yeah, but how fast was the carriage moving? So that's an omnibus. The omnibus. I can't believe they could bring something so enormous in here. Great Britain's courtrooms are amazing. As you can see, the omnibus is pulled by 2 horses and can carry up to 8 passengers. Four passengers seated inside the old closed cabinet and 4 on the rooftop deck above. Every Londoner knows that the best views of the city's architecture and sights are to be had from the top of the omnibus. And I should point out to our foreign guests that there is a skylight in the roof, allowing a view from the interior from the seats above. The penny drops at last, I see. These 2 gentlemen were occupying the rooftop seats in the omnibus when these murders took place. That is how they came to witness the grim incident, through the skylight. But, no it doesn't! If the point of sitting on the rooftop was to admire the city, then why would they be looking down in the skylight instead of at the city? Well, Counsel, this is a first. In all my years behind the beds, I never experienced the crime scene itself being brought to me in the courtroom. There are a number of important clues remaining inside the carriage, my lord. I would like to submit the omnibus itself as evidence. That is the prosecution's wish. Very well, I see no reason why not. This omnibus is hereby formally accepted as evidence. Great Britain is simply extraordinary. I could help myself a lot by giving that omnibus a thorough examination, seeing as though it's here. Let's continue with the proceedings. Your cross-examination, then, Counsel. Pray don't expect this Nipponese to understand the intricacies of British cross-examination rights. Alright, my first cross-examination in a British court. Focus, Ryunosuke. How am I doing? I'm doing fine. How are you doing? Alden. We're in case 3 here. It was the last bus of the evening, so I had few customers. I remember it well. Yes, I think it was sometime after 10, wasn't it? Oh, yes, sir. Yes, ever so cold. I was freezing, in fact. And you had 4 passengers on board at the time, is that correct? Yes, not all traveling in the same parts of the bus, of course, though. No. And there were no other passengers when the incident took place. No one alighted, for example. You're quite right with that, sir. No other passengers in there. You only fled the crew to see the crime, then. The boss insists on it running, it does. That last bus of the day. But I do wonder if sometimes it's altogether worthwhile. Sorry to say. Well, with it being so cold and everything, and only making 20 pence on the run, I spend that much at the pub on the way home just trying to warm up again. The victim and the man accused of killing him were sitting next to each other in the bus. Next to each other? Then how was he stabbed like this?
Hold it!
You're doing alright? That's good. And you saw them through the skylight of the roof of the carriage. That's right, when you show them the top deck, the window's right there at your feet. There's the lamp on inside, so I had a pretty good view. Why were you looking in there? The two of them were wearing hats, and I couldn't exactly make out their faces. But the sun shone down my way and was Mr. McGilder. How can you be so sure? Well, how can I put it politely? Mr. McGilder is a gentleman of rather small stature. I couldn't have mistaken him for anyone else. Let's forget that when the vehicle came to a halt, the only people inside the enclosed cabin were the deceased Mr. Mason and Mr. McGilder. There's no room for doubt here.
Hold it!
You actually saw the exact moment it happened? Didn't I already testify to that? Or a fair Dingham Hardwoody City Baker is not considered trustworthy these days. Perhaps you could just tell us what you saw in a little more detail if that's... My lord! What is it, juror number 3? What is the meaning of this? My mind is made up, my lord. Completely and utterly made up. I don't like the stinking rich. Never have. Based! There's always up to something or other that they shouldn't be. Every one of them. Based! And that little leprechaun of a man is no exception. Well, he can't fool me. There's no point wasting time in listening to any more of this. That's my opinion on the matter anyway. That is precisely what I was about to say. As the foreman of the jury, it's my duty to set a good example to my fellow jurors. What the... Let me see. Ah, yes. It seems that's how the members of the jury give their verdicts. White for innocent and black for guilty. As the 6 members of the jury make up their minds about the case, one by one they each cast a ball of fire in the great scales of justice. So if those enormous scales fall completely to the black side, that means... Let's do our best to make sure that it doesn't happen. Very well, the court announces the changes in the jury's stance. Counsel for the defense, please continue with your cross-examination.
Hold it!
You stabbed him, you say, and you were sitting up on the roof deck, were you? Yes, that's right, sir. I was up on the roof seats. I remember seeing the little gent standing next to the fellow that was stabbed. I've been thinking about a new hat design, see, so I was just gazing absent-mindedly around. But then, I happened to look down through the skylight. It was sticking right out of his belly, that huge great knife. A grim sight indeed. That didn't help me at all. The jury looked like they're even more convinced my client did it than they were before. That appears to make everyone even more dubious that Mr. McGilder is telling the truth. If only we had some evidence to counter their suspicions. Mr. First, is this the knife you saw? Oh, good grief. Yes, that's it. The very one, sir. Yes, counsel. This is the blade that was driven in the victim's belly, like a stake through the heart. The blade is of considerable size, counsel. It is, and furthermore, the scabbard is emblazoned with a certain initial. The letter M, which seems oddly familiar. M for Magnus, perhaps? Or McGilder, possibly. Take your pick. It seems this particular big name... What? You started... Watch a few videos. Oh, that's nice! Yeah! I hope you enjoyed that video. Which video did you happen to see?
Objection!
But there are M's everywhere. Yes, like in Mason. What? You have a special font? This blade is far too extravagant for a poor brickmaker to have owned. No, this weapon of murder must certainly belong to the accused. Not conclusive, but certainly compelling, counsel. My lord, if you'll forgive the interruption. Shit, we're fucked! Mr. McGilded is a pillar of society and a gentleman word's word should be sacrosanct. However, those of us in service know we must accept the hard truth. Dispose of the rubbish. I think we're fucked. I don't wish to cause offense, but I do like to eradicate all traces of filth and grime. I've painstakingly typed every word uttered here. As such, I am now in a position to draw the only logical conclusion. No! Not again. That's 4 out of 6 jury members who've proposed a guilty verdict. There are only 2 left. We've had it. Every time I press these witnesses for more information, I just make the situation worse. Nevertheless, what we need more than anything in this information is... But... Alright, I'll keep trying. I can't give up. I just need to keep calm and listen to the witness statements again.
Hold it!
What exactly did you see? Oh, well, sir, that would be the passenger, sir. Yes, collapsed on the floor. And by the passenger, you're obviously referring to the victim, Mr. Mason the brickmaker. Collapsed on the floor? And the other passenger had his knife in his hand like this. By the other passenger, you're referring to the accused, Mr. Magnus McGilded. And he plunged it down like this, stabbing the other passenger in the belly. Wait, but he only screamed after he saw the murder. My lord, I wish to speak. As the master of the London Guild of Coachmen, the idea of a murder being committed in one of the city's carriages is utterly abhorrent to me. It wouldn't be right to make a decision before hearing all the facts, though, I said to myself. But I've heard enough now. The horse has bolted, as they say. Gee up now, Silverblaze. The finish is in sight. Beppo is a long-standing member of the guild, and I trust what the man said. This is too unkind, sir. Which now means that 5 jurors agree to condemn this man. Madam Juror number 6. Yes, dear, what can I do for you? You have heard the testimonies of the witnesses in the stand. Oh yes, I certainly have. Still got my hearing, you know. Then, pray tell, why are you yet to pronounce your leaning? Well, dear, the thing is, I'm a creature of habit, me. I always go to the park at around this time of day, and I sit on a nice bench and get on with my knitting. There's a lovely little park just near where I live. McGilded Park, it's called. The gentleman donated it to the city, you know, to put a smile on Londoners' faces, he said. I can't imagine such a fine young gentleman would have it in him to take another man's life. He's always doing wonderful things for the city. That's right, a man like that wouldn't stab someone, surely. Mother, may we go to the McGilded Public Library and borrow some more books? How many Londoners live with their heads in the clouds? Do you people not know what kind of a mad Magnus McGilded really is? The philanthropist Magnus McGilded has enough wealth to purchase the entire city he claims to value so highly. But where did all that wealth come from? Your client is a Shylock, sir, and one with the very darkest of souls. Stole the crows! Mr. Guild lends money at extortionate rates of interest, so his victims have no hope of repaying him. When they default, he takes possession of everything they own. He is a vulture that preys on the weak. I've never heard any mention of that before. Your faculties haven't deserted you, madam. So has this thought not crossed your mind? Would a man wealthy enough to buy London in its entirety not have a carriage of his own? What possible reason could this have man to make use of a public omnibus service? The victim, a poor brickmaker, had little next to nothing to his name. Consider, it will come as no surprise that his creditor was the accused, Magnus McGilded. But let it also be known that the very day Mr. Mason was killed, was the final repayment date for his debts. The brickmaker was destitute. He had lost his house. He had not a shilling which to repay his debt. And in the end, this pitiful soul had the very last thing he owned taken away from him, his life. By the merciless philanthropist pretender, Magnus McGilded. If I may add something briefly. You claim that the victim had been lent money by Mr. McGilded, but where is the evidence to support your claim? Pray forgive the discourtesy of filling my hallowed chalice in a court of law. But I find me in an unexpectedly good humor. I'd heard ladies from the Far East could show great courage, but I didn't expect to experience it myself. As judicial assistant to the events, I am simply doing my job. What a pity that your display of courage isn't in vain. This is the debtor's ledger, in which all details all monies loaned by the accused. In it, you will find the victim's name clearly recorded inside. Allow me to present this ledger as evidence. And pray forgive the discourtesy of freezing my chalice in a toast to the enigmatic East at this time. A marvelous toast, Counsel. I would gladly accept this new evidence. Ah yes, 20 guineas. The victim owed a considerable sum, and the accused made quite certain that he had ample recompense. This portfolio must contain all sorts of secrets of London gentry. Do you really think we ought to look inside? Well, it's not as though we know any of London's gentry apart from our great detective friend, perhaps. Actually, I wonder. I assure you we will not find Mr. Sholmesnade inside. Gosh, it's crammed full of gentlemen's names, isn't it? I suppose they're not all gentlemen at all, are they? After all, not everyone in this country is well off. Goodness! Look at this. Do you see this name here? Bruce Fairplay. Should that mean something to me? It does sound strangely familiar, actually. Bruce Fairplay, the witness testifying at this very moment. The banker. Why is his name in here? He borrowed 20 guineas, did he? And look, the repayment date is fast approaching. That's why he wants to get him killed. It's possible that this is just a coincidence, of course, but this could be very useful information. Well, it would seem I've had the wool pulled over my eyes. Regrettably, madam, that is the modus operandi of the accused. And it's such a pretty little park, too. What a scoundrel! Still, maybe it's all for the best. I don't stand for nonsense. And we're fucked. That was it. The last juror's decision. According to the Encyclopedia of British Law, when all members of the jury have concluded that the defendant is guilty, court proceedings are suspended and the presiding judge will deliver the final verdict and sentence. That's what it says here. It's over then. There's a footnote, though. However, the defense... All 6 members of the jury are now in agreement on this case. Allow me to convey my respect for your swift and righteous decision. According to the laws of the country, I will now conclude the trial by delivering my final verdict. I trust there are no objections. Mrs. Otto, just tell me one thing. What does that footnote say? You were in the middle of saying something before. The footnote in your Encyclopedia of British Law. However, the defense... What did it say next? When all members of the jury have concluded that the defendant is guilty, court proceedings are suspended, and the presiding judge may deliver his final verdict in sentence. Then the footnote says, however, the defense has the right to demand a summation examination of the jurors at this point.
Objection!
A summation examination? From which century has that tome there been resurrected? Judging from the binding, I would say that book is at least 50 years old. Any modern text on British law wouldn't even give such an antiquated procedure a mention. It's a relic, long forgotten, and certainly no longer practiced. So you're out of luck. What do you think even this so-called summation examination? You would demand the right to a procedure before you even understand what it entails. Typical Nipponese. Wow, this guy's fucking... Under this procedure, we would be able to appeal to the members of the jury. Appeal to them to change their leaning and reverse their decision. And it says here that, if successful, the proceedings of the trial must be resumed. In times gone by, barristers would use a summation examination in an attempt to use... But that procedure became something of formality with no practical benefit, so it rather fell out of use. Because it was devoid of purpose. Changing just one member of the jury's mind would be hard enough, let alone several. No self-respecting defense barrister would even assert his right to try in this day and age. Still, I don't see any mention of the proceeding actually being formally revoked. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that although it may be antiquated and largely forgotten, it isn't yet extinct. What do you think, Mr. Naruto? A summation examination, our last possible option. Do we assert our right to carry it out or admit defeat? The defense wishes to assert its right to a summation examination, my lord. London is the capital city of the most powerful nation on earth. We have a duty to the world to exemplify the various highest standards of judicial procedure. Summation examinations are an embarrassment that should remain buried.
Objection!
But if it's our right, it's our right. I believe it could prove vital in this trial. The defense's position is perfectly valid. The court will proceed with a summation examination. This is madness. Foreman, are you and the remainder of the jury ready? Well, I'm not, there's no mention of this in the letter I received, you see, so... All the members of the jury will be asked to explain on what grounds they have reached their decision. You must justify your decisions and explain why you believe the defendant to be guilty. This is most irregular. No mention was made of this before. I don't really hold on with this justifying lark. That seems to have thrown the jurors off. It seems none of them have experienced this before. Alright then, the summation examination. A defense procedure with no practicing lawyer has attempted for years, is it? Well, just maybe, it might be the opportunity we've been looking for to turn this trial around. So be it then, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the court hereby calls upon you to state the grounds on which you find the defendant Magnus McGilton guilty of this most serious crime. Hi, welcome back. There was no one else inside the carriage at the time, so it has to have been him. I trust the driver. He has an excellent memory, it seems. 4 passengers with fares totaling 20 pence. He stuck the chap next to him just like this. Brazen, I must say. Absolutely brazen. I've simply typed and collated all the statements made this far and drawn the logical conclusion. You can trust the guild. Fair fares is our motto. You haven't raised price about 4 pence for years. The scoundrel stabbing that poor man on the floor, it begs belief. I'm starting to wish I hadn't pushed for this now. Some of the jurors don't seem to have wonderfully formed arguments, though, do they? Just a moment, Mr. Naruhodo. According to my book, that's not quite how it works. Unfortunately, once the jurors have decided the defendant is guilty, they're unlikely to heed anything the defense says. They've reached their conclusion by their own reasoning, you say. Your pleas will sound like excuses. In fact, it could recoil on you. The more you try to persuade them, the more entrenched they may become. From what I can understand, the key to this procedure is using the jurors' own words to make your arguments. The 6 members of the jury are randomly selected members of the public. They may appear to present a united front, but the truth is, they're complete strangers who just happen to find themselves here in the courtroom together. And that's the way to break them down, you mean? We must listen very carefully to what each member of the jury says and see if we can identify any contradictory statements. If we can, we then contrast the statement and pit the opposing jurors against each other. So it's your turn to die! So it's contradictions in what 2 or more jurors are saying. It's similar to a regular cross-examination. Find contradictions in their statements. Find contradictions in their statement and pit the jurors against one another to break them down. Alright, I might be able to pull this off. I have to pull this off. Can we start proceedings, counsel? I would ask you to take the stand for this. I'm expressing a clear and concise rebuttal. There's no one inside the carriage at the time, so it had to have been him. Certainly, the testimonies we've heard selected that they were alone inside the carriage. Precisely my point. But could there be some other explanation, something we haven't considered yet? Such as... Haha, well, perhaps that's something we could, all work out together now. Now listen here, maybe you don't know how things work around here just because you're from foreign climes. But we're here to form our opinions as individuals, and I have! Oh dear, he doesn't appear to be in the mood to consider an alternate point of view, does he? No, I'm gonna have to pit the jurors against one another, like Shizada-san said. Finding contradictions in these people's assertion is the only way I'm going to succeed.
Hold it!
Does his ability to recall his taking last night really tell us how trustworthy the man is? I manage Aldersville Wardship's cash affairs, so I'm very particular when it comes to account. A single penny can mean the difference between life and death after all, can't it? That's a saying in your country? My point is, a man who minds his figures is a man you can trust. Those of us in thorough service would swear to that, sir. Does that bench really need any more polishing? So if the good driver says he saw Mr. McGilden in the act, I don't doubt him. The only task left to do today is disposing of the rubbish. Oh, now wait a minute. One of the other jurors mentioned something about money, I think. He has an excellent memory, it seems. 4 passengers with fares totaling 20 pence. But you said above 4 pence for years.
Objection!
Those 2 statements clearly contradict each other. They do. Explain yourself, counsel. Me? Oh dear, what have I said? I swear on Silverblaze's name and name, I haven't the farthest idea what you're talking about. According to the group testimony we've heard so far, there were 4 passengers on the omnibus that night in question, and according to the coachman, Mr. Beppo, he took 20 pence in fares. Quite right, I have those precise details typed neatly here in front of me. And juror number 5 also told us the following. The fare for the omnibus is always 4 pence. A fair and convenient single price. That's just the way London's carriages should be operated. But that doesn't add up at all. In fact, it leaves a glaring discrepancy in the facts. Why, man? Why? 4 passengers paying 4 pence each. If you do the multiplication, it would be 16. Exactly. As I said, it just doesn't add up. The figures are different, by 4 pence in fact. Or precisely 1 person's fare. In other words, on the omnibus that night, it's distinctly possible there's another passenger we've heard nothing about. This can't be right. The coachmen of the guild are good, honest men, one and all. Trustworthiness is our word. The figures your coachman claims certainly do not add up. Your watchword, good sir, is a fallacy. Mr. Guildmaster, I think you ought to consider that if this trial were to end now, the news will surely spread all over London. The news that one of your coachmen tried to hide the fact that he let nefarious characters ride his omnibus. How do I make it so this miserable trial doesn't end? Well, according to my book here, you simply launch a ball of fire on the innocent side of scales. Now hold your horses there, coachman. We were all in agreement. Why do you have to go and... Wait till I get my hands on you, Beppo! Oh, this is all very irritating. Begging your pardon, sir, I'm going to do the same. Really? For the love of Mike, not you as well. A penny can be the difference between a smile and tear, after all. I certainly can't put my trust in someone who doesn't follow my exacting standards in financial matters. Oh, really? I, for one, think it's only proper that we hear from the witnesses again. Well done, Mr. Naruhodo, you did it! If we can manage to change 2 more jurors' minds, we can force the trial to continue. Actually, there is something else that's bothering me about a couple of their assertions. And that's where you might straight next. So I need to pit 2 more jurors against each other. Exactly, you can do it! Well, these scales of justice have shifted, but they still weigh heavy on the side of guilt. Counsel, you have the floor again. Continue your summation examination.
Hold it!
Careful, you could hurt somebody with that. You're the first one to talk. What is that sword hanging from your waist? That's just my battered soul. I despise anyone with too much money. They're all the same, all stabbing some brickmaker or someone behind the scenes. That seems very unlikely, doesn't it? Are you mad, man? We know that the small shorty is a rotten Shylock. Well, yes, that does seem to be the case, but... Mr. Naruhodo, please be careful what you say. If he's been trying to screw us out of us less fortunate, then as far as I'm concerned, he's guilty of sin. The man can hang. Dumbass! Didn't one of the other jurors have something to say about the defendant's underhanded activities?
Objection!
Those 2 statements are completely contradictory. Oh, dearie me, I was only in the jumper for my other half. What is all this class chat? What does contradictory even mean? We've heard from more than one witness that they allegedly saw the actual moment from when the defendant stabbed the victim. Now, out of curiosity, juror number 3, what? Can't you see I'm busy here? How would you say the defendant stabbed the victim? What sort of motion was it? Want to test me, would you? It was like this. Suck the fellow next to him without even getting up. Just like the prim banker said. Yes, that was Mr. Fairplay's testimony. Quite true. Now then, juror number 6. How would you say the defendant stabbed the victim, madam? Oh, well, dear, as far as I understand it, it was this. He stabbed the poor man after he'd collapsed on the floor. The coachman said so. Take a look at these 2 jurors. He stuck the fellow next to him without even getting up. And he stabbed the poor man after he'd collapsed on the floor. They're stabbing in totally different directions. Bless my stitches! What a muddle! What this tells us... How long have we been streaming for? An hour and a half, okay. That there's a strong possibility that one of these witnesses isn't telling the truth. You mean the jurors? They were not witnesses, they're jurors, right? Or am I stupid? Oh! But why? Why the dickens would they lie? I don't know that yet, but what I do know is that if the trial ends at this point, we may never find out. We may never know the real truth. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, can you really let that happen in all good consciousness? That guy, the guy with the sword is just like me. The knife is just like me. For real. Lies, you say? Oh, dearie me. I can't abide by people telling lies. The scales. I don't believe it. Wait, now hear this, my fellow jurors. I warn you, you cannot listen to this man. Look at him in his black suit. He's clearly some devious Eastern sorcerer using magic on us all. If I could use magic, answer me this, Dark Jinx. What exactly is the problem? What if the 2 witnesses have slightly different examinations of events? Let's say the Shylock did stab the victim as he sat next to him. Then this young lady saw him do it. Now let's say the victim collapsed on the floor, and then the Shylock stabbed him again, and this old lady saw him do it. Well, what's to say it didn't happen like that? Who you calling a dandy, sir? Why I should take this knife to you? Who you calling old? Why I should take this needle to you? They're ready to kill each other now. But that could be the foreman of the... But could the foreman of the jury be right? Do the 2 witnesses see 2 different moments of the same... Unfortunately, Mr. Foreman... What is it, you Dark Jinx? Come on, out with it! What you're suggesting is impossible. It's out of the question. What are you talking about, man? How could you possibly say that? You do realize that I'm only doing my job. As foreman of the jury, I have a responsibility to steer everyone in the right direction. So where's your evidence, man? That's what we want to see. I say the 2 witnesses saw 2 different moments of the same crime. If you say that's out of the question, show us some proof. It looks like the only way I'm going to convince him is to present him with something he can't dismiss. Some irrefutable hard evidence. As you wish. I'll give you the proof. It's out of the question that the 2 witnesses saw 2 different moments of the same crime, as proven by the autopsy report. It's a single stab wound. This is the victim's autopsy report. According to what's written here, Mr. Mason was stabbed in the abdomen only once. It's quite simple. The victim was stabbed precisely 1 time, which means these witnesses can't possibly have seen it happen at 2 different times. Alright, I can see defeat. Wait, that means 4 jurors are now leaning to not guilty. We've done it, Mr. Naruto. We've won! What are you playing at, you dandy fool? Shut your trap, sir. No one deceives me. But we've had a consensus. I said shut your trap. I don't lie when I see one. If the chap ever chooses to draw the corner short of my shot, I'll take this razor-sharp blade and shave every last hair off his head. Well, in a quite remarkable turn of events, the defense's summation examination has flipped the balance of the scales of justice. The jurors now stand at 2 for guilty and 4 for not guilty. Accordingly, there is no longer a large enough majority among the jury for me to adjudicate, and the trial must continue. I hereby ask the defense, prosecution, and witnesses to return to their places, and I call upon all of you to pursue the truth. So, Lord Von Zieks, continue to substantiate the case for the prosecution, if you please. He looks like Miles Edgeworth. Is he literally just Edgeworth's ancestor? Oh, he's pissed. Having savored the rich aroma of the carmine contents of the hallowed chalice, it may seem crass to crush it to dust. Pray forgive the discourtesy. Is he fucking like... Is he a Godot? Slides the cup over, grabs it. Lord Von Zieks, is it cold in here or is it just me? As your antiquated tome no doubt says, the prosecution may not speak during the summation examination, so I honored a deathly silence and listened to the charade. It seems I overestimated the intelligence of the jury. Well, no matter. There's nothing so hard to prove as a self-evident truth, it would seem. No, and why else would we grace the courtroom with our presence after all? So, let us proceed to the next round of battle. Bring forth the witnesses once more. Witnesses! I trust you heard the summation examination we have just had to endure. Oh, yes, sir, I did, sir. That part is the sheath, isn't it? Are you alright, Mr. Naruto? Oh, sorry, yes. I just don't really like blades. Oh, those don't seem like the word of a man with a large katana slung from his waist. That's not a blade, that's Kazuma's soul. Anyway, there's no sense in delaying it. Let's see what the blade looks like. I can't find anything out of place. That looks a lot like blood. It surely is blood, the victim's. An Englishman's blood looks a lot like a Japanese man's blood. Do you think it wouldn't? It's just that we've only arrived here in Great Britain. I'm finding it a little hard to adjust. Yes, I do understand. What? An ornate letter M. Undeniably Mr. Magnus's regilded initial. It must be very valuable, I would think. Look at this M. If you turn it upside down, it becomes a W. This could change everything. This is one of those, you know, turnabout cases. I'm sure of it. What I'm sure is that this is an M. Why do you think that? Yes, I did, sir. Of course I heard it. Oh, yes, sir, I heard it. You, sir, in the end, the coachman. I believe it's Beppo. Yes, sir, my lord, sir. If it transpires that in your previous testimony you were attempting to veil the presence of a fifth passenger on your omnibus, you will be found guilty of perjury. You are advised to bear that in mind, sir. Oh, mio dio. Oh. Now then, witnesses, I hereby calling you to testify before the court again. You'll explain the various misgivings brought to our attention by the defense's summation examination. I only carried 4 passengers that night. I swear it, but, well, I, for one, was told I had to pay 5 pence for the bus. He fiddled us on the fare, he did. And then I saw that blood-curdling sight. It's all too much. I tell you, I saw Mr. McGilda stabbing that man. Everything I said before stands. Oh yes, he stabbed him. Yes, he did. I think so, yes. Counsel, make sense of this for me, please. The phantom fifth passenger conjured to existence by my loaded Eastern friend never existed. The confusion has risen from the Crochus man's sly little concierge. Beppo, explain yourself. I'm terribly sorry, Guildmaster. The guild fare is 4 pence across the board. Am I to understand that you've been overcharging our passengers by a penny a fare? It's so cold, and the last run of the day is always half empty. You've been dishonest, coachman. You're a disgrace, Beppo, a disgrace, and your selfish action has brought dishonor onto the entire guild. If I may, sir, I had to pay 10 pence on the bus just last week. 4 passengers at 5 pence each is 20 pence. I've done the arithmetic 10 times, but I can't make up a result that comes out differently. No, that figures... Well, it would appear that one of the aforementioned misgivings has already been explained. So, counsel for the defense, your cross-examination, if you please. We've already had the pleasure of a protracted summation examination today. I see you intend to continue the parlor games. Absolutely.
Hold it!
So, there were only 4 passengers on your carriage, but you didn't charge them the standard 4 pence fare. Is that right? It's impossible to make the last run of the day pay. It was so cold, and all I could do is stop myself from passing out. I'm getting chill brains just listening to you. It was terrible, so I wanted to give myself a pat on the back for keeping the bus running. Doesn't a dedicated coachman deserve an extra penny per passenger? You're digging a deeper hole for yourself here. If only there had been a 5th passenger on the omnibus that night, then we would have had... Well, I for one was told I had to pay 5 pence to the bus. Does that mean everyone on board that night paid 5 pence instead of 4? Well, I paid 5 pence too, sir. And I just told you that I did. A flat fare of 5 pence across the board. It's not something to be proud of. The so-called discrepancy my learned friend identified was nothing of the sort. Most like a phantom killer you just so desperately needed. It's gone. Dead and buried. I'd have been happy if it ever existed in the first place.
Hold it!
This blood-curdling sight, you mean the murder, I presume? Yes, sir! A loathsome sight. No one should have to witness the horror in the eyes of a man the moment his life is taken away. Oh, well, not exactly. I mean, I didn't actually see the exact moment the gent was stabbed. Good gracious, really? We have another witness who did, however. The banker has already testified to it. But Mr. First didn't actually see the point that his victim was killed. That may turn out to be very significant. I heard the banker next to me take a sharp intake of breath. That's when I looked through the glass. That's when I saw that horrible blade poking out from his belly, all covered in blood. Every time I see a knife now, I can't help screaming, even when I'm eating.
Hold it!
So you saw the defendant, Mr. McGilda, stabbing the... That's what I said, isn't it? It was bothering me before this was. For just a brief moment, he hesitated before answering the question. Anyway, there was only 2 of them inside the carriage, was there? There's been much talk of a 5th passenger, but as of yet, 0 evidence. Then what are we wasting all this time for, eh? It's black and white. The man's guilty. Something about Mr. Fairplay's testimony just jars with me. I wish I could work out what it was. not long ago, this trial very nearly came to an end. We've managed to keep our chances alive here. I can't waste this cross-examination. I have to use it to bring some new facts to light. If you're not careful when you press these witnesses, the danger is that the jury will end up believing something unhelpful as they did before. Maybe, but we can't let the fear of that happening... Yes, you're so right. I need to pay careful attention here. I don't want to miss even a flicker of a reaction among these witnesses.
Hold it! Excuse me.
Oh, I didn't mean to pursue. If I mean, Mr. Fairplay, what are you fussing about now for? That last statement appears to have given you pause for thought. Not really. By the way, you always seem to be looking to the side, one way or another. Do you have some affliction? Not really. He's not really willing to say anything, it seems.
Hold it! Hold it!
Earlier, you testified that you saw the moment when the defendant allegedly stabbed the victim, didn't you? Yes, that's right. You said that the victim was on the floor and described the assailant holding the knife in an ice pick grip. I suppose I might have, yes. Put the cart before the horse, maybe. Why are you looking so scared? Well, I'm quite sure about most of it. I was driving horses when I heard a scream from the seats of the roof deck. Oh, I expect that was me, sir. Then, when I turned around, I saw it through the skylight. The gentleman was on the floor, and the knife was sticking up out of his midriff. That's right, and the fellow holding the handle was the famous man. Yes. Oh, wait!
Excuse me.
Okay, so that's the... Do you have something to say about that, Mr. Fairplay? Now you listen to me! I know what you're thinking. He really didn't see the exact moment of the fellow was stabbed. What are the chances of that, eh? Are you asking me or telling me? He's getting flustered. I might be able to extract some new information from him. Could he just have happened to see the exact moment the crime was committed? No chance. Well, it is a little hard to believe, certainly. Unless you spend your time peeping through your skylight on the top of an omnibus, that is. Peeping? I'm a respectable city bank girl, have you know, and I know what I saw. It was a grim scene, I don't mind telling you. Thank you, Mr. Fairplay. Oh, excuse me if I were getting a little hot under the collar. I would ask you to supplement your testimony with a clear statement about what exactly you saw. Oh, I can do that, alright. I'll tell you just how grim it was. Hands? They were wearing gloves. And it was only splashed a bit with blood. I wouldn't describe it blood-soaked.
Objection.
Blood-soaked hands? Well, I admit that soaked might be laying it on a little thick, but... But anyway, there are definitely blood all over them. Both of them were covered in it. Well, I'm very sorry to disagree, Mr. Fairplay, but that's more than a little peculiar. Here are the gloves worn by the defendant, Mr. McGilded, on the night in question. Oh, yes, right. And there certainly does appear to be a sizable dark-colored stain there, but, as I'm sure you can clearly see, it's only on the right-hand glove. In short, Mr. Fairplay, your testimony is inconsistent. But, no, that can't be right. So you're the liar here, then. That's right, you were quite clear about it. You said it was both hands. Mr. Fairplay, if your last statement was a lie, it calls your entire testimony into question. You say you saw the moment the victim was stabbed, but is that really the truth? Well,
Objection!
It was a simple mistake. You can't justify accusing this man of lying. Yes, it wasn't both hands, it was only one, but the fact remains... The victim's blood was on the accused. No, Mr. Fairplay categorically stated that he saw blood all over both hands, which means there's a strong possibility that this witness was deliberately trying to mislead the court. My word should be the gold standard. I'm a gentleman, not some gutter snipe. Upstanding of members of society don't prevaricate. He's claiming to have no reason to lie, but is that really the case? Mr. Narhodo, if we had examined to reason, we could turn the tide in this trial completely. Something to show this man has a compelling reasoning to lie in his testimony. The book. My lord! The defense is ready to present evidence. By Jove, are you sure? Yes, evidence that will clearly demonstrate why Mr. Fairplay had reason to lie in his testimony. I hereby call on the defense to present its evidence. The evidence that demonstrates a motive for the witness's alleged deception of the court.
Take that!
This is a list of the debtors who owe money to Mr. McGilded. Yes, a list of innocent victims crippled by the accused's extortion. The point is, among the names of these debtors is Mr. Bruce Fairplay. Mr. Fairplay, are you currently indebted financially to the accused? No, well, it's barely worthy of being called a debt. According to this ledger, you owe 20 guineas, not an inconsiderable sum of money, wouldn't you say? Well, what of it? Let's suppose Mr. McGilded were to be found guilty of murder. What would become of your debt in that case? These documents say that the loan agreement is forged between the two individual parties. Therefore, were the creditor, the defendant here, to be sentenced to a capital punishment, all outstanding debts which were owed to him would be annulled. They would cease to exist. Mr. Fairplay, is it not the case that you claimed in your testimony to see something you never had far in a devious attempt to annul your debt of 20 guineas to the defendant? Order! Mr. Bruce Fairplay. Let me ask you again, and be aware that your answers may have most seriously implications about your future, sir. Did you or did you not see the precise moment at which the defendant is alleged to have dug a knife into a victim? Your silence speaks volumes. You did not tell the truth in your testimony. Alright, now let's not make a melodrama out of this. Perhaps I did overstate the truth a pinch. But it makes no difference. I definitely remember seeing blood on Mr. McGilded's hands. Both of them. And yet only one of the defendant's gloves that we have here as evidence is stained. So you keep saying. I wonder if I may be allowed to speak, sir. Go ahead, Mr. First. Well, the thing is, I think I remember seeing it myself, as it happens. Seeing what? The blood, sir, on the assailant's hands. I think, yeah, I'm almost sure that it was on both of his hands, not just one. So it would appear that we're going to need further testimony from all you witnesses. This time, I would like to know precisely what you did and what you did not see. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I didn't miss your message. I missed your message. Do I make myself perfectly clear? Mr. Narhada, this is good news. The course of the trial seems to have shifted slightly at last. Yes, I might finally have a chance to turn things around here. And that is going to be where we end the stream for today. Because I'm tired of reading for 2 hours. It takes a lot out of me to read for that long. So, yeah, I'm going to end the stream there. Tomorrow, we will do a bit of a longer stream. Maybe, I don't know, it depends. But that'll be tomorrow's plan. And then, no stream Friday or Saturday, and probably not Sunday. And I'll just stream whenever I feel like then, after that. Alright, thank you for watching. Bye!